Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast. And in this episode, we're going to give you our revisited for the Jaws franchise. The rest of the movies are ass, but Jaws 1 is pretty good. We just reviewed Meg 2 The Trench, which was pretty ass, but the first one was all right. So, Dylan, without further ado, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, the first one was honestly like a staple in cinema. I think a lot of people can agree. The second one, I still like the second one personally. Like out of the whole franchise, I think the first two are strongest. It's kind of like the first two Halloween movies. Like everything after that came after was pretty ass. Mm-hmm. But I think, well, the first one definitely was like shock value to everybody. You know, nobody ever seen something like that before, and it kind of instilled this fear of water in everybody. I think back in the day, they actually I think I heard somebody had like a outdoor like venue, and it was like in a pool, and everybody was too afraid to go like in the pool or something.
Oh wow.
Because it was just that terrifying. But yeah, it definitely is ahead of its time in terms of like shock value. And of course it's directed by Steven Spielberg, and one's his household names, right? And it's probably the only shark movie that was like good. I would say. I think Deep Blue Sea was the only thing that came close. But it's kind of like Jurassic Park, and it's like how many shark movies can you really do without it being like repetitive, right? But of course, I think what stands out in this movie, the first movie, was definitely the characters, because definitely the characters are very colorful, and you actually like enjoy watching them, right? It's the moments actually like on dry land building up to the boat fight that are actually like memorable, and it makes you like want these characters to come out safe, because you invest so much time into them, right? I feel like nowadays, like when you watch shark movies, like you don't really care about the characters, so it's like they're just chum at that point. But what are your thoughts?
So Jaws sucks, but not the first one though. The first one, I think the idea of a shark being a movie monster is one of the dumbest things someone can do, but what they did here was clever. They utilize cinematography really well to invoke shock, right? Mm-hmm. Jaws himself, the actual shark, is a great white shark, but it's huge, really big, right? So you have that going for it. The whole thing centers around characters that, for some reason, and no particular reason, they're always like around the sea, right? So that's just their thing, and they're there, right? If they're like in South Dakota or Nebraska, there's no talk about this, right? So of course it's the setting, and then the actors plays a huge role into it, and that's what invokes the fear, and that's what builds up the tension. So there's a delicate balance to do that. So we could all appreciate that for the first Jaws movie. The rest of the Jaws movie, I wouldn't even feed Jaws the crust under my balls, or like even waste the water in my mouth to spit on it with. That's how much I don't care about the rest. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I still think it's ahead of its time. Like maybe when I rewatch it now, it's kind of a bit lackluster. But when you watch it for the first time, it's like, and of course the music. Because John Williams lended that, that's a big iconic theme. So the music itself is like a character in a way. And I agree with what you said about the cinematography, because that's really what kind of started this trend in horror of not showing, right? It's the theater of the mind that we talk a lot about in horror reviews. It's like the imagination of, what it is, right? And I think that's kind of why people are afraid of the ocean too, because they can't really see, what's inside it or like what's underneath, right? They can only imagine it. You don't know where this thing is. You don't know how big it is until it gets you, right? But yeah, I mean, a shark makes sense. I mean, it's a predator, right? I think the shark too itself, they had problems like on set. It was like a mechanical shark too. So actually it worked out in Steven Spielberg's favor to actually not show it so much, right? But I also enjoyed the dialogue scenes between the three characters. So we have like the quintessential shark hunters or the adventurers, right? We have Roy Schneider as Martin Brody. He's like the police chief. We have Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper. He's like a marine biologist. And then we have Robert Shaw as Quint. I heard actually Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw, like they had like disputes like on set, which kind of like lends to their characters in a way because they're like fighting, like their actual characters like fighting all the time. What I love about the first movie and what I love about these three characters actually is they have different motivations for wanting to kill the shark in a way. Because Roy Schneider, he's like the police chief, right? So he wants to protect, the people of the mainland. And then Matt, he's a marine biologist, so he wants to study this shark, right? So that's why he's doing this for scientific, observation. And then you have Quint, who's kind of like out for revenge because of the Indianapolis story. So I always thought it was interesting, like this dynamic of these three gentlemen. They have the same goal in mind, but it's for different reasons.
Very perfectly said. Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, obviously there's so many factors that come into play to make Jaws even worth being like super iconic, worth having the ratings, and even it's still studied in schools like for narratology and stuff like that. I even wrote something about it. So again, I think it's one of the first movies too that suffers from the franchise fatigue or something like that. It's like they keep trying to milk it. It's one of the first because Jaws is like from 1975. I don't even know when Halloween came out. I think Halloween came way after that.
I think it actually came the year that Star Wars came out.
Halloween?
1970. No, Jaws.
No, it came out in 1975.
Wasn't that the year that New Hope came out?
77, New Hope.
Oh, close. Yeah. Well, it was a competing, contender. So that was like around the time when blockbuster movies were like being pumped out.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, then we have Jaws 2, and it's pretty lackluster. It still has like the same kind of vibe to it, and some of the original characters were kept, like Roy Schneider's Martin Brody, and then we see his kids grown up, and it's more about the kids than the adults in the second one, and they're kind of like on summer vacation, right? And it kind of like started down the road of the teen slasher movie, right? But I think it doesn't lend as much as the first one. The first one had a lot of like heart to it. It was like it felt more like an adventure movie than a slasher. The second one feels like more like a slasher. And then we have Jaws 3D, which suffered the 3D. I hate when movies try to do 3D.
Especially back then.
Back then, it looked like fuck. Well, it looked like the original Dune with the fucking the shields, like the poly. It was so bad. It was like I had to like cut my eyeballs out just to watch it. And it didn't really have anything to do with the original story or the original cast. And then you get to Jaws: The Revenge, which is Jaws 4, and it goes back to the original cast. I mean, Lorraine Gary, who plays Ellen Brody. But I think by that time Roy Schneider had already passed away, so they couldn't really bring his character back. But then it's like I always say, it's like, what more could they do with the shark franchise? It's like it's the same story every time. It's like, okay, the shark, okay, he eats some people, and it's always like it's never the same shark, right? It's like either like the baby sharks, or it's like a shark that has nothing to do with the original shark. It's like they're like xenomorphs at this point.
Either that, or they're like, that's a one messed up shark family. Like my cousin's about to fuck everybody up. Like, damn, you guys are mean.
Shit. I mean, the only thing they do like different is like getting creative with the kills, like how they kill the swimmers, right? And how they kill the shark too. Like the first one, they used the was it like the air tank? I think Mythbusters did a episode a long time ago, like if that could actually like explode. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, it's a franchise that kind of degrades as you continue with each movie, but I think just because of the popularity of the first one, it's still a great franchise and a staple in cinema. But do you have any other thoughts?
I'm just not a big fan of shark movies in general. I think it's easier to make vampire movies and werewolf movies than it is like shark movies. And Jaws, I think the legacy from Jaws is just Jaws. After that, it's all ass. So it's all Jaws is all bite, but the franchise is all tail. Maybe it was meant to. Yeah, maybe it was meant to be like that. Maybe this is all like a metaphor. That's why the other movies are like
the shark community like dislikes this.
The shark community. That's the last thing I would expect. Yeah, I mean, fuck it.
Well, so do you think it's better than like movies that came after it? Like, okay, let's say like Anaconda or Piranha.
And that's what started it, really. No, I mean, well, Anaconda is iconic just because it's like the first snake movie in a way, right? But other than that,
when I see that snake, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it looks so fake.
Animal movies honestly aren't really good. The reason is because in real life, these things would be resolved really quickly. You know, if you have like a semi-automatic shotgun, that anaconda's head is going. Jaws is a different story, but I mean, as we saw from the Meg, it's like they could drop charges, which I don't even think in real life they would do that. I think they'll get like a big ass boat. Hell, you know, poor sharks in Japan, get one of those Japanese fishermen and like cut the fins and shit. Those poor sharks. Shit. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not even aware of this like a huge fandom for Jaws. You guys are weirdos if you are. I swear. You guys are so weird.
Oh shit, we're one to talk, but
yeah.
Yeah, well, I still think they're the first one at least, not the ones that came after. I think the first one is still a great movie, I would say. It's weird to say, like, you know, there's shark movies and then there's movies, right? I think it's a great movie, whether or not you feel the same. But I think it kind of like lends. It started a lot of things that we see in modern cinema, right? Like I said, like the music, the cinematography, even just the Indianapolis story. I always thought like that was like always the scene I kept going back to was when Quint always tells the Indianapolis, because that's a true story about what happened with the Indianapolis. So I always thought that was a cool, you know, account on his part, because I think a lot of veterans actually like love the movie just because of that account, right? But I don't have much more to say on it other than it is what it is, I guess. It's still better than the Meg. But yeah, if you guys love Jaws, you know, let us know what you thought about the movies. If you enjoyed them or if you didn't, let us know. But yeah, thank you guys. We have a lot of content coming out this week. We're so busy. But I hope you stuck around. Let us know and sub to the page. But thank you guys so much. And until then, thanks for having lunch with us.
If you're a marine biologist, hit me up. All right. See you guys.